I stood in the middle of my own backyard holding a glass pitcher of lemonade while my daughter-in-law laughed and called me the help. The sun was bright. The music was soft. Pink balloons floated above the dessert table for my granddaughter Madison's 16th birthday party. Everyone was smiling for the photographer, dressed in clean linen and expensive shoes, standing in front of the flower wall Brittany had ordered with money she did not earn. I had been awake since 5 that morning. I baked the casseroles. I sliced the fruit. I ironed Tyler's shirt. I polished the silver serving trays Brittany liked to pretend were hers. I wiped down every counter, swept every floor, and made 3 trips to the grocery store because Brittany kept forgetting things she wanted. And when the photographer called for the family photo, I wiped my hands on my apron and stepped forward. Brittany lifted one manicured hand and stopped me. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, smiling tightly. "Not right now. Could you refill the lemonade first? This photo is just for the immediate household." The words landed quietly. That was the cruel thing about humiliation. It did not always arrive screaming. Sometimes it arrived dressed in a polite smile in front of neighbors, relatives, and children who suddenly found the grass very interesting. My son Ryan stood beside his wife in his pressed blue shirt, the one I had paid for last Christmas. He saw my face. He saw the picture trembling slightly in my hands, and he said nothing. Then one of Brittany's friends laughed and asked, "Wait, is she your mother-in-law or the housekeeper?" Brittany tilted her head and gave a little shrug. "Honestly, some days, both." The backyard erupted in light, careless laughter. I looked at Madison. She was 16 now, old enough to understand cruelty, but still young enough to be embarrassed by the truth. Her cheeks turned red. She looked away. I looked at Tyler, my sweet 10-year-old grandson, who started to step toward me until Brittany gently pulled him back into the photograph. That was when something inside me became very still. I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not throw the lemonade across Brittany's perfect white dress. I simply carried the pitcher back to the table, removed my apron, folded it neatly, and placed it beside the birthday cake. Because inside my purse, under a pack of tissues and a church bulletin, was a cream-colored envelope. Inside that envelope were 48 months of bank statements, property tax records, utility bills, private school tuition receipts, Ryan's overdue car loan notices, Brittany's credit card charges, and the deed to the house everyone was standing in, the house they told people they had built through hard work, the house they said I was lucky to live in, the house that had my name, and only my name, printed on the title. Just as Brittany lifted a microphone to give a speech about everything she and Ryan had sacrificed to create this beautiful life, a black sedan pulled up in front of the house. My attorney, Samuel Brooks, stepped through the side gate carrying a leather briefcase. Brittany frowned. "Excuse me," she snapped. "This is a private family event." Samuel looked at her, then at me. "I understand," he said calmly. "I'm here on behalf of the woman who owns this property." The backyard went silent. Ryan's face turned the color of wet paper. Brittany laughed once, sharp and ugly. "My husband owns this house." I finally looked her in the eye. "No, Brittany," I said. "Your husband lives in my house, and after today, I'm not sure he'll be allowed to. But before I tell you how my family learned they had never paid a single bill without me, you need to understand how I became invisible in the home I bought. 4 years earlier, I still believed my son wanted me close because he loved me. That was the lie I held on to after Thomas died. My husband passed away on a Tuesday morning in early March, sitting in his favorite recliner with one hand resting on the newspaper and the other still warm in mine. One moment he was asking if I wanted coffee. The next, his head tilted slightly to the side, and the entire world I had known for 39 years went silent. After the funeral, the house in Dayton felt too large for one woman. Every room carried his shadow. His reading glasses sat beside the lamp. His work boots remained by the back door. His navy coat still hung in the hallway closet, holding the faint smell of sawdust and peppermint gum. I told myself I was strong. I had survived payroll audits, tax seasons, layoffs, and the sudden death of both my parents. But losing Thomas was different. It did not break me loudly. It hollowed me out quietly. Ryan called every evening that first week. "Mom, you shouldn't be alone," he said. "Come stay with us for a while." At first, I refused. I did not want to be a burden. I had my savings, my social security, and the life insurance Thomas had left me. I had spent 31 years as a senior accountant for a construction firm. I knew how to stretch a dollar until it begged for mercy. I did not need to be rescued, but Ryan kept calling. Brittany sent pictures of Madison and Tyler holding handmade cards that said, "We miss you, Grandma." Tyler even left me a voicemail in his small, sweet voice. "Grandma, Daddy says you can have the room near mine. I'll protect you from monsters." That broke me more than any argument could have. 2 months after Thomas's funeral, I sold the Dayton house. I told myself I was not losing a home. I was joining a family. Ryan and Brittany were looking for a bigger place in a quiet suburb outside Columbus. Good schools, wide sidewalks, maple trees, and neighbors who waved while pretending not to look into each other's windows. Brittany called it the perfect fresh start for all of us. The house they wanted was beautiful. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a finished basement, a white kitchen, and a backyard big enough for birthday parties. There was only one problem. They could not afford it. Ryan never said that directly. Brittany certainly did not. But I knew numbers the way some women knew flowers. I saw the tension in Ryan's jaw when the mortgage officer mentioned debt-to-income ratios. I saw Brittany's smile stiffen when the bank asked about her credit card balances. I saw the rejection letter half hidden beneath a stack of glossy real estate brochures on their kitchen counter. So when Ryan sat beside me one evening and said, "Mom, maybe we should wait," I touched his hand. "How much do you need?" His eyes filled immediately. "Mom, no, I wasn't asking," but he was. He just did not have the courage to use the words. I paid the down payment. I covered closing costs. I cleared one of Ryan's overdue debts so the financing could move forward. And on the advice of my attorney, Samuel Brooks, I made sure the deed stayed in my name. Samuel had known me since Thomas and I wrote our first will. He leaned across his desk, folded his hands, and looked at me over his glasses. "Eleanor, love your son. Help your son, but do not hand your entire life to your son." I almost laughed then. It sounded so dramatic. Now I know he was trying to save me. When we moved in, Brittany hugged me in the driveway. "We're so blessed," she said, her perfume sharp and sweet against my cheek. "This is going to be so good for you." For the first few weeks it was. Madison curled up beside me on the sofa and showed me videos from school. Tyler asked me to read him bedtime stories. Ryan kissed my forehead before leaving for work. Brittany called me Mom in that bright, polished voice of hers. Then the small requests began. "Eleanor, would you mind watching Tyler for just an hour?" "Mom, could you toss the towels in the dryer?" "Can you stir the sauce? I have a headache." "Would you pick Madison up from practice? I'm running late." None of it felt cruel at first. Families helped each other. Mothers helped their children. Grandmothers helped their grandchildren. So I helped. 1 hour became an afternoon. 1 load of laundry became everyone's laundry. 1 dinner became 5 dinners a week, then 7. I learned where Brittany liked her wine glasses placed, how Ryan wanted his shirts folded, which brand of cereal Tyler would eat, and how Madison liked her lunch packed when she was too tired to do it herself. Slowly, my name disappeared from conversations. I was no longer Mom. I was no longer Grandma Eleanor. I became, "Can you ask her to clean this up?" Or, "Tell her we're out of paper towels." Or, "She forgot to unload the dishwasher." The first time Brittany referred to my room as the guest room by the laundry, I said nothing. The first time Ryan walked past me carrying his dinner plate and left it in the sink without a word, I said nothing. The first time Madison rolled her eyes because I had not washed her favorite jeans fast enough, I said nothing. I told myself grief made people sensitive. I told myself young families were busy. I told myself love sometimes looked like service. Then one evening, while wiping marinara sauce from the kitchen counter, I heard Brittany laughing on the phone in the living room. "Honestly, having Eleanor here is amazing," she said. "No daycare, no cleaning lady, no meal prep service. She needs to feel useful anyway." Ryan chuckled softly. "Yeah," he said. "Mom likes being needed." I stood very still, the damp cloth cold in my hand. That was the first night I understood the difference between being needed and being used. After that night, I started noticing things I had trained myself not to see. That was the strange thing about disrespect. It rarely arrived all at once. It slipped into a home quietly, like cold air under a door. One day, someone forgot to say thank you. The next day, they stopped asking. Then, before you realized what had happened, your kindness had been rewritten as obligation. Brittany was especially skilled at rewriting things. Online, she was a devoted wife, a proud mother, and a woman who had built a beautiful life through hard work and prayer. Her social media was a shining museum of half-truths. Every photo was bright, every caption was polished, every lie wore a soft filter. She posted pictures of the kitchen I had paid to remodel, finally creating the dream home we worked so hard for. She posted Madison in her private school blazer. Investing in our daughter's future is our greatest joy. She posted Ryan standing beside his new SUV, with his arms crossed like a man who had conquered something. So proud of this hardworking husband of mine. I would sit at the small desk in my room by the laundry, reading those captions while my bank app sat open on my laptop. Mortgage payment, withdrawn from Eleanor Whitaker checking. Private school tuition, withdrawn from Eleanor Whitaker checking. SUV emergency loan payment, transferred from Eleanor Whitaker savings. Electric, water, gas, internet, homeowner's insurance, property taxes, all mine. At first, I told myself it did not matter what Brittany posted. Young people liked appearances. Maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe she needed to feel successful. Maybe letting her pretend was another form of kindness. But the pretending did not stay online. One Saturday afternoon, Madison brought 3 girls home from school. They burst through the front door, carrying iced coffees, shopping bags, and the loud confidence of girls who had never worried about a bill being paid late. I had spent the morning making lasagna because Brittany said Madison wanted something homemade but not old-fashioned. I baked garlic bread, made a salad, and set the dining table with the white plates Brittany kept for guests. As the girls came into the kitchen, one of them smiled at me. "Hi," she said politely. "Are you Madison's grandma?" Before I could answer, Brittany swept into the room wearing cream-colored trousers and a smile too sharp to be natural. "Oh, Eleanor stays with us," she said lightly. "We're helping her out after her husband passed. It's been good for her to have a little routine." I froze with one hand on the oven mitt. Helping me out. The words sounded so reasonable, so generous, so clean. Madison glanced at me, then looked down at her phone. None of the girls noticed the silence that followed. Why would they? Children believe the version of life adults serve them. Brittany had served them a beautiful house, a perfect lunch, and a poor old widow rescued by her successful son. I pulled the lasagna from the oven and placed it on the counter. "Could you bring extra napkins?" Brittany asked without looking at me. I brought the napkins. During lunch, I stayed in the kitchen because no one invited me to sit. I washed the mixing bowls while I listened to Brittany tell the girls how expensive Madison's school had become, but how she and Ryan made sacrifices because that was what good parents did. My phone buzzed beside the sink. It was an automated email from the school billing office. Tuition payment successful. $2,850. Account ending in 4417. My account. I stared at the email until the screen dimmed. From the dining room, one of Madison's friends said, "Your parents are so generous." Madison laughed softly. "Yeah, they work a lot." I rinsed soap from my hands, dried them carefully, and went to my room. For the first time, I did not cry. I opened my old laptop, the one Ryan once joked belonged in a museum, and created a new folder on the desktop. I named it Household Support, Ryan and Brittany. Then I began sorting. Bank statements, tuition receipts, mortgage confirmations, utility bills, tax payments, text messages from Ryan asking if I could cover just this month, screenshots of Brittany requesting grocery money, party deposits, and emergency payments for credit cards she described as temporary. There were so many documents that I had to make subfolders: house, school, vehicles, utilities, credit cards, cash transfers. It should have embarrassed me. Instead, each file made me calmer. I had spent 31 years as an accountant. I knew something Ryan and Brittany had apparently forgotten. Numbers did not get emotional. Numbers did not gossip. Numbers did not care who looked good in a Facebook photo. Numbers simply told the truth. That night, Ryan knocked on my door just after 10. He stood in the hallway wearing sweatpants and the guilty smile he used when he wanted money. "Mom," he said, lowering his voice. "I hate to ask, but the SUV payment hit at a bad time. Brittany had to put down a deposit for Madison's birthday venue, and my bonus is delayed again." I looked at my son for a long moment. "How much?" he exhaled in relief. "Just 1,200. I'll pay you back next Friday, promise." He had made that same promise 11 times. I transferred the money while he stood over my shoulder. "Thanks, Mom," he said, kissing the top of my head. "I don't know what we'd do without you." After he left, I saved the transfer confirmation into the folder. Then I whispered to the quiet room, "One day, you may have to find out." Thanksgiving was the day I stopped making excuses for them. Brittany had been planning it for 3 weeks, though by planning, she meant sending me links to recipes, decorations, and serving ideas while reminding everyone else how exhausted she was from hosting. "We're keeping it simple this year," she announced one morning, scrolling through her phone at the kitchen island while I packed Tyler's lunch. "Just family, a few cousins, my parents, Ryan's uncle, Claire, maybe the Petersons from next door." "That sounds like 22 people," I said. She waved one hand. 24, actually, but it's casual. Casual meant I started brining the turkey 2 days in advance. Casual meant 3 kinds of pie, because Brittany's mother did not like pumpkin unless there was also pecan. Casual meant polishing silverware nobody used except when Brittany wanted the table to look impressive. Casual meant Ryan carrying one folding table from the garage and calling himself wiped out while I stood over a hot stove for 9 hours. On Thanksgiving morning, I woke before dawn. The house was still dark and quiet. For a few peaceful minutes, it almost felt like mine again. I stood in the kitchen wearing Thomas's old cardigan over my nightgown, measuring flour for pie crust while the coffee brewed behind me. I used to love Thanksgiving. Thomas would sneak into the kitchen and steal pieces of turkey skin before dinner. Ryan, when he was little, would sit on the counter and ask if mashed potatoes counted as vegetables. Back then, the house smelled like butter and sage and laughter. Now it smelled like work. By noon, Brittany came downstairs dressed in a deep green wrap dress, her hair curled, her makeup perfect. She looked at the counters covered in food and smiled as if she had personally summoned the feast by being beautiful. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, glancing at my plain blouse and black slacks. "You're not wearing that, are you?" I looked down at myself. I thought I'd be in the kitchen most of the day. "Exactly." She lowered her voice. "Just maybe don't sit until everyone has been served. You know how crowded the table gets." I stared at her. She smiled. "It's just easier if you help from the kitchen." From the living room, Ryan called, "Britt, where's my belt?" She rolled her eyes and walked away. I stood there with a spoon in my hand, listening to the front doorbell ring for the first guests, and I felt something inside me pull back another inch. The house filled quickly. Coats piled on the entry bench. Children ran through the hallway. Brittany's parents praised the smell of the food. Uncle Martin slapped Ryan on the back and told him the place looked fantastic. "You've done well for yourself," he said. Ryan smiled. "Thanks, we've worked hard." I was carrying a tray of deviled eggs when he said it. My fingers tightened around the edge of the tray, but I kept walking. Dinner began at 4. Brittany arranged everyone at the table with the precision of a wedding planner. Her parents near Ryan, Uncle Martin at the far end, Madison and her cousins squeezed together. Tyler beside Brittany, though he kept looking toward the kitchen. There was no place card for me. Claire noticed first. Ryan's younger sister had always been sharper than people gave her credit for. She arrived late, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a red coat, and her eyes moved immediately from the full table to me standing near the stove. "Mom," she said slowly, "where are you sitting?" Before I could answer, Brittany laughed. "Oh, Eleanor insists on helping. She gets restless if she just sits." Claire did not laugh. I asked Mom. The room quieted slightly. Ryan cleared his throat. "Claire, don't start. It's Thanksgiving." I set the bowl of mashed potatoes on the sideboard. "It's fine," I said. But it was not fine. It was simply familiar. Brittany lifted her glass before Claire could say anything else. "I just want to say how grateful I am," she began, turning toward the guests with that camera-ready smile. "This year has reminded me how important family is. Ryan and I have worked so hard to build this home, to give our children stability, and to create a life we can be proud of." People nodded. Glasses lifted. I stood behind the dining room doorway, invisible enough to serve them, visible enough to be used as decoration when needed. "To hard work," Brittany said. "To family," Ryan added. Everyone drank. I looked at the turkey, the pies, the house, the chandelier, the school blazer Madison had tossed over a chair, the keys to Ryan's SUV sitting in the bowl by the door. Hard work. Yes, there had been plenty of that. After dinner, while everyone moved to the living room, I stayed behind to clear plates. Tyler tried to help me until Brittany called him away. "Let Grandma handle it, sweetheart. Go play." Grandma. Only when she needed me to sound loved. I was rinsing gravy from a serving dish when I heard voices from the garage. The door had not closed all the way. Uncle Martin said, "Your mother seems tired, Ryan. Is she doing okay financially?" Ryan gave a small laugh. "Mom, she doesn't really have much anymore. We let her stay here because she's alone." My hands went still under the running water. Martin asked, "Does she help with bills?" Ryan laughed again, softer this time. "Bills? No, she helps with dishes." The water kept running. Something hot rose in my chest, but it was not tears. It was not even anger. Anger was too wild for what I felt. This was colder, cleaner, final. I turned off the faucet, dried my hands, and walked to my small room beside the laundry. I closed the door, opened the metal box where I kept Thomas's old papers, and pulled out Samuel Brooks's business card. My thumb hovered over the number for only a second. When he answered, his voice was gentle. "Eleanor, I need you to review every payment I've made for this household." There was a pause. "How far back?" I looked toward the wall that separated my little room from the family laughing in the living room I had paid for. "All of it." Samuel exhaled quietly. "Are you finally ready to protect yourself?" I looked down at my hands. The same hands that had cooked their food, washed their plates, folded their clothes, and signed the checks that kept their beautiful life standing. "No," I said. "I'm ready to stop protecting them." Samuel Brooks did not tell me to confront them. That was the first thing he said after I brought him the folders. We sat in his office the Monday after Thanksgiving, rain tapping softly against the tall windows behind his desk. Samuel had always kept his office plain and serious. No flashy art, no unnecessary decorations, just dark wood shelves, framed licenses, a brass lamp, and the kind of silence that made lies uncomfortable. He opened the first folder, then the second, then the third. By the time he reached the tuition receipts, his mouth had become a thin, hard line. "Eleanor," he said quietly, "do Ryan and Brittany understand how much you've paid?" "They understand enough to keep asking." He looked up at me over his glasses. "That is not the same thing." For nearly 2 hours, Samuel reviewed the records. Mortgage transfers, property taxes, utility bills, insurance, school tuition, car payments, credit card rescues, grocery receipts, emergency cash transfers, checks written to contractors for repairs. Brittany later claimed Ryan had handled. When Samuel finally leaned back in his chair, he removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. $312,000, he said. I stared at him. The number seemed too large to belong to my life. "Over 4 years," he continued. "And that does not include unpaid domestic labor, childcare, cooking, cleaning, transportation, or the fact that the deed is solely in your name." I folded my hands in my lap. "I didn't do it as a loan." "I know," Samuel said. "That is why I'm not treating it like one yet. But if they attempt to force you out, take financial control, or misrepresent ownership of the property, we will have more than enough documentation to respond." I almost smiled. Samuel did not say revenge. Men like Samuel use softer words. Respond, protect, recover. But I understood what he meant. Before I left, he placed one more folder in front of me. "Do not sign anything they give you. Not a birthday card if it comes with a second page." I nodded. "And Eleanor," he added, his voice lower, "let them believe you are still uncertain. People like Brittany become careless when they think they have already won." I drove home through the rain with Samuel's warning sitting cold in my chest. For the next 2 weeks, I became very good at being quiet. I cooked dinner. I folded towels. I picked Tyler up from school. I smiled when Brittany asked if I had remembered to buy almond milk. I listened when Ryan complained about work stress and nodded as if I did not know his stress was mostly unpaid bills waiting for my rescue. But I stopped offering. That was when Brittany noticed. The first sign was the grocery card. Every Friday, Brittany usually left a long list on the counter, assuming I would take my debit card and handle it. That week, I bought only the basics: milk, bread, eggs, vegetables, coffee, chicken, and Tyler's cereal. When Brittany opened the pantry that evening, she frowned. "Where are the sparkling waters? I didn't buy them." She turned around slowly. "Why not? They weren't necessary." Her expression changed just a little. It was the look of a woman hearing a machine make an unfamiliar sound. The second sign was Ryan's car payment. He knocked on my door at 9:30 on a Thursday night. "Mom, I hate to ask again," he began. I looked at him from my chair. "Then don't," he blinked. "What?" I said, "Then don't." For a moment, my grown son looked 12 years old. Then his face tightened. "Mom, it's just a rough month." "You've had 48 rough months, Ryan." His mouth opened, but no words came out. The next morning, there was a glossy brochure on the kitchen island, Sunset Pines Senior Living. Brittany stood beside it with a coffee mug in her hand and a bright, poisonous smile on her face. "Eleanor, we found somewhere lovely for you." Ryan stood near the refrigerator, suddenly fascinated by the floor. I picked up the brochure. A smiling gray-haired couple sat beside a fake fireplace on the cover. "A senior community," Brittany said. "Activities, meals, people your own age. Honestly, this house is getting crowded and you need more independence." "Independence," I repeated. "Yes," she said quickly. "You can't stay tucked away in that little room forever. It's not healthy." I turned the brochure over. The monthly cost was $4,900. "And who would pay for this lovely place?" Brittany's smile flickered. "Well, you have Social Security and whatever savings you still have. Whatever savings, as if she had not spent years draining them one emergency at a time." Ryan stepped forward holding a folder. "Mom, this is just some planning paperwork. Nothing serious. It would let me help manage things if you move." I took the folder from him and opened it. My eyes moved over the pages. Financial power of attorney, authorization to access accounts, permission to manage property decisions, voluntary residence transition agreement. I looked up slowly. "Did you read this before handing it to me, Ryan?" Color rose in his neck. Brittany said it was standard. I closed the folder. "Of course she did." Brittany's voice sharpened. "We are trying to help you." "No," I said calmly. "You are trying to help yourselves." The kitchen went silent. For the first time, neither of them knew what to say. I carried the folder to my room and closed the door. My hands were steady as I scanned every page and sent the copies to Samuel. 10 minutes later, his reply came back. "Do not react. This is exactly what we needed." That night, I heard Brittany whispering furiously in the living room. "Why is everything still in her name?" Ryan answered so softly I almost missed it. "Because technically it's her house." There was a long pause. Then Brittany said, cold as winter glass, "Then we make her sign it over." I stood in the hallway, my hand resting against the wall of the house I had bought, and for the first time in months I smiled. Madison's 16th birthday party became the stage Brittany built for her own humiliation. She just did not know it yet. For 3 weeks, she treated that party like a royal wedding. She ordered a flower wall, custom cookies, pink balloon arches, a 3-tier cake, and a photographer who charged more for 2 hours than I used to spend on groceries in a month. Every delivery came to the front door with Brittany's name on it. Every payment came quietly from somewhere else. Sometimes Ryan paid the deposit with his credit card. Then 2 days later, he would knock on my door. "Mom, could you help me cover this until Friday?" Friday never came. Samuel told me to keep everything, so I did. Every invoice, every text, every transfer confirmation, every sweet little message from Brittany that began with "Eleanor, I hate to ask," and ended with a dollar amount. The morning of the party, I woke at 5. The house was still dark, but Brittany had left a handwritten list on the kitchen island. Pick up ice, set out serving trays, slice lemons, steam Madison's dress, iron Ryan's shirt, check bathroom towels, prepare fruit platter, refill drink station. Do not forget gluten-free cupcakes for Ashley's daughter. At the bottom, she had written in large letters, "Please wear something simple." I read the list once, then folded it neatly and placed it in my folder. By noon, the house looked like a magazine spread. The backyard was transformed into a soft pink fantasy of ribbons, flowers, candles, and white linen tables. Brittany floated from guest to guest in a pale cream dress, accepting compliments as if the decorations had risen from the earth in honor of her taste. "Brittany, this is stunning," one woman said. Brittany laughed lightly. "Oh, we just wanted to do something special. You only turned 16 once." I stood near the drink table in my blue cardigan, pouring lemonade into glass dispensers. Ryan passed me twice without speaking. Madison looked beautiful, truly beautiful. She wore a rose-colored dress and silver earrings I had given her for Christmas. When she came downstairs, her eyes met mine for half a second. "You look lovely," I said. "Thanks," she whispered. Then Brittany called her away for photos. I watched my granddaughter step into the center of the flower wall while the photographer adjusted the family around her. Brittany stood on one side, Ryan on the other, Tyler in front. Claire had arrived by then, standing near the patio steps with her arms crossed, watching everything too carefully. The photographer smiled. "Grandma, do you want to step in?" I wiped my hands on my apron and took one step forward. Brittany's head snapped toward me. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, her voice sweet enough to rot teeth. "Not right now. Could you refill the lemonade first? This photo is just for the immediate household." There it was. Not family. Household. Ryan shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. One of Brittany's friends gave a little laugh. "Wait, is she your mother-in-law or the housekeeper?" Brittany tilted her head. "Honestly, some days, both." The laughter spread across the patio. It was not loud. That almost made it worse. It was light, casual, careless. The kind of laughter people give when they believe the person being mocked has no power to answer. I looked at Ryan. He looked away. I looked at Madison. Her face went red, but she stayed frozen in place. Then I looked at Tyler. His little mouth tightened, and he started toward me until Brittany placed both hands on his shoulders and pulled him back into position. Something inside me settled. Not broke, settled. I carried the pitcher to the drink table, removed my apron, folded it once, then twice, and placed it beside the cake. Claire's eyes followed the movement. She knew. Brittany took the microphone a few minutes later. She stood beneath the balloon arch with Madison beside her and Ryan hovering behind them like a man trying to disappear inside his own shirt. "Thank you all for coming," Brittany began. "Ryan and I are so proud of the life we've built for our children. This home, this family, this beautiful day, none of it came easily. We sacrificed so much to give Madison and Tyler the future they deserve." I opened my purse. Inside was the cream-colored envelope Samuel had prepared. Brittany continued, her voice warm and performative. "And of course, we're grateful Ryan's mother helps around the house. At her age, I think it's good for her to feel useful." Several people clapped politely. I did not move. At that exact moment, the side gate opened. Samuel Brooks stepped into the backyard wearing a charcoal suit and carrying his leather briefcase. He did not look angry. That was Samuel's gift. He looked like a man bringing rain to a house fire. Brittany lowered the microphone. "Excuse me," she said sharply. "This is a private event." Samuel stopped beside me. "I understand," he said. "I'm here on behalf of the legal owner of this property." The backyard went silent so quickly I could hear ice shifting in the lemonade dispenser. Brittany laughed once. "My husband owns this house." "No," Samuel said, opening his briefcase. "He does not." Ryan's face turned gray. Samuel placed the deed on the dessert table, right between the birthday cake and the custom cookies. "This property is owned solely by Eleanor Whitaker." A whisper moved through the guests. Brittany's smile vanished. Samuel placed another document beside it. "Every mortgage payment for the last 48 months came from Mrs. Whitaker's personal account." Another document. "Property taxes." Another. "Utilities." Another. "Homeowner's insurance." Another. "Madison's private school tuition." Madison covered her mouth. Samuel looked directly at Brittany. "And the woman you just publicly referred to as help has contributed $312,480.76 to maintain the lifestyle you have been claiming as your own." Brittany lunged for the papers. "This is private." I gently placed my hand over the deed before she could touch it. "So was my dignity," I said, "but you served that to everyone with cake." Ryan finally stepped forward. "Mom, please, not here." I looked at my son, really looked at him, his expensive shirt, his trembling mouth, his soft hands, his life held together by my silence. "You made the lie public, Ryan," I said. "I'm only letting the truth catch up." Samuel removed the final envelope from his briefcase. "This is a formal notice. Mr. and Mrs. Whitaker will either sign a repayment and residence agreement within 7 days, or they will vacate the property within 30. Brittany's face twisted. "You can't throw out your own family." I looked at the children first, then at Ryan, then at Brittany. "No." I said quietly. I'm throwing out the people who forgot I was family. And that was when Samuel leaned closer and said the sentence that made Brittany's entire body go still. There is also the matter of the credit card opened in Mrs. Whitaker's name. The moment Samuel mentioned the credit card, Brittany stopped breathing like a woman who had just heard a gun being cocked. For the first time that afternoon, she did not perform. She did not smile. She did not toss her hair or look around for someone to admire her suffering. Her eyes went straight to Ryan, and in that one panicked glance, she confessed more than any courtroom testimony ever could. Ryan turned toward her slowly. What credit card? Brittany opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Samuel removed another document from his briefcase and placed it on the table with the others. 14 months ago, he said calmly, a credit account was opened using Mrs. Whitaker's social security number and personal information. The current balance is $18,700. The guests had gone completely silent. Even the children were still. Madison stared at her mother as if she were seeing a stranger wearing a familiar face. "Mom?" she whispered. Brittany snapped out of her shock. "This is ridiculous," she said, her voice too loud. "Eleanor gave me permission. She forgets things. She's been confused for months." There it was, the final insult. Not just the maid now, the unstable old woman, the confused widow, the convenient excuse. I felt every eye turn toward me, waiting to see if I would crack. I did not. Samuel gave a small nod toward the driveway. "Then you will be happy to explain that to the fraud investigator from First County Bank." A man in a navy suit stepped through the side gate. Brittany's face collapsed. The investigator introduced himself as Mr. Harlan. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He had branch footage, application records, electronic signatures, and a copy of Brittany's driver's license scanned during the account opening. She had not merely used my information online. She had walked into a bank and pretended she had my authorization. Ryan looked sick. "Brittany," he said, "tell me you didn't." She turned on him instantly. "Oh, don't you dare act innocent now. You liked the vacations, you liked the parties, you liked Madison staying in that school, you liked your mother paying for everything while you played successful husband." Ryan flinched as if she had slapped him. The truth had finally stopped being polite. Samuel closed the folder. "Mrs. Whitaker has 3 options," he said. "She may file a police report for identity fraud, she may pursue a civil claim for repayment, or she may allow both of you to sign the agreement I prepared this morning." Brittany laughed bitterly. "You planned this." I looked at her. "No, Brittany, you planned this. I documented it." That was the difference she never understood. For years she thought silence meant weakness. She thought kindness meant stupidity. She thought an old woman who cooked dinner and folded towels could not understand bank statements, deeds, signatures, and liability. She had mistaken my patience for permission. Samuel handed Ryan the agreement. The terms were simple. They had 30 days to leave my house. Ryan would sign a structured repayment plan for documented household debts he had personally requested. Brittany would accept responsibility for the fraudulent credit account and close it immediately. If either of them violated the agreement, Samuel would file both the civil suit and the fraud complaint without further warning. Ryan's hands shook as he read. "Mom," he whispered, "please, where are we supposed to go?" I looked at my son and saw 2 versions of him at once. The little boy who used to fall asleep against Thomas's shoulder during baseball games, and the grown man who stood silent while his wife called me the housekeeper in my own backyard. "I don't know, Ryan," I said. "For the first time in 4 years, you'll have to answer that question without using my checkbook." His eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry." I wanted those words to heal something. They did not. Maybe they would someday, but not that day. Madison suddenly stepped away from the flower wall and came toward me. Her mascara had run slightly under her eyes. "Grandma," she said, voice breaking, "did you really pay for my school?" I nodded. Her lips trembled. "Mom told me you didn't help with anything." Brittany made a sharp sound. "Madison, this is not the time." Madison turned on her. "No, you don't get to say that." That was the first time I saw my granddaughter choose the truth over comfort. Tyler ran to me then, wrapping both arms around my waist. "I don't want you to go, Grandma." I held him close and closed my eyes for 1 second. "I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart," I whispered. This is my home. 30 days later, Ryan and Brittany moved out. There was no dramatic goodbye, no apology from Brittany. She packed her designer bags, slammed drawers, and told anyone who would listen that I had destroyed her family. But families are not destroyed by truth. They are exposed by it. Ryan rented a small apartment across town. For the first time in his adult life, he had to pay his own rent, his own utilities, his own car note, and his own consequences. He called twice the first week. I did not answer. Then he started sending short messages. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm starting therapy. I know I failed you. I did not forgive him immediately. Forgiveness, I had learned, was not a coupon people could hand you after bankrupting your peace. But I did not hate him either. Hate was too much work. I had a house to reclaim. The first thing I did was move out of the little room beside the laundry. Claire helped me carry my clothes upstairs to the master bedroom. Thomas's framed photograph went on the dresser. Fresh blue curtains went over the windows. I bought new sheets, the soft, expensive kind I had always talked myself out of. The room beside the laundry became a sewing room, then a reading room. Then, eventually, a place where Madison sat on Saturday afternoons, helping me sort old photographs while Tyler played board games on the floor. One evening, months later, Madison helped me set the table for dinner. No balloons, no photographer, no speech about sacrifice. Just roasted chicken, green beans, warm bread, and people who knew whose hands had prepared it. Madison placed a fork beside my plate and looked around the quiet kitchen. Grandma, she asked softly, do you miss having everyone here? I thought about Ryan's laughter from years ago, Brittany's heels on my floor, the sound of my own name being reduced to instructions. Then I looked at the table, at Claire pouring tea, at Tyler sneaking butter onto his bread, at Madison waiting for my answer. No, sweetheart, I said. I miss who I thought they were, but I don't miss being invisible. They treated me like the maid because I cooked their meals, washed their dishes, folded their laundry, and kept their beautiful life running. But when they learned I paid every bill, they finally understood the truth. I was never the help. I was the foundation.